Hello folks, it is I, Remi-Chan, and today... oh man, so today was spicy. So, most of you probably don't know, because unlike the people who pretend their lives revolve around me, I don't think most of you know about this little community called the RPG Maker community, because outside of their bubble, no one has really heard about it. And the reason for that is because they're terrible people, and people just generally disassociate with them based on a stigma that is very valid. And yes, this video is unscripted, which is why I've kind of already made a couple hiccups, because I just don't feel like actually going by a script. Now to focus, I'm trying to make my VTuber look as adorable as possible, to sort of somewhat mellow out the things I'm about to say. Because yeah, shocker, I've had problems with this community since 2012, and possibly even before then. Like, I've been around this community's block. I've been there, I've seen the people, and yeah, as a prior video pointed out, I've had had to deal with, you know, basically a false allegation that I'm a plagiarist, which is completely untrue. See the video prior for information on that one. But yeah, so let's just say I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder of this community. And yeah, to give us a bit of context, earlier this year, as in quite early this year, like around January, February, I joined a place called the RPG Maker beta server, which is one of the only, like, Discord beta servers left that, you know, isn't filled with... Well, actually, it's terrible too, but the point I'm getting at is, I thought it was going to be alright. I thought, oh no, people here are giving me a second chance. They're being cool. But here's the thing, it's not that the people there are cool, but it's not that they were even giving me a second chance. It's more that the community is so dead set on what it wants for itself, which is a really tragic thing. But yeah, that it just doesn't seem to know how to stop self-cannibalizing itself. Because yeah, like, there are people who have left this community for basically good, and some just for a pretty long, possibly indefinite hiatus, Nikarasu being one of these, and to like, keep this consistent, no, I don't have any issue with Nikarasu. He did not lean into any of the terrible behaviors. In fact, he's one of the few people in the community who actually has a public presence who I can tolerate. The reason for that being, he just tells it like he thinks it is, and it doesn't hold back. And yes, he's been mean to me, but, like, so has he been mean to fucking everyone. So at least he's consistent, and he can see the good people are trying to do. So yeah, when I joined this community, it was with the hidden pretext that this was the last community I would give the time of day to. This would be their last chance to show that, hey, maybe after 10 years, you guys have grown up. So, did they go up? Nope, they're still terrible, and it's hilarious. To fully describe what's going on here, yeah, the RPG Maker community has always been, you know, a pretty tumultuous place, like, especially before Degaka made the reforms to the engine, which basically made it so the only way to get over here wasn't pirating it. You could actually buy it on Steam now. Yeah, before that point, it was very much a free-fire zone, and things got crazy very quickly. Like, there was a lot of drama, and so the drama we have these days, after Degaka has kind of, like, gotten a bit of order put into things, is kind of really easy to just ignore. Like, the fact I had a bit of a falling out with Tron, the fact that he tried to rubbish me publicly, only to fail miserably, but look, he did try, alright? And that's like the most drama we've had in a while, beyond just Hawk Zombie being Hawk Zombie, Skyforger being Skyforger. You know, the guys who think they're at the top and think their games are the good ones, besides the fact that their games are generally pretty generic, and in most cases, and yes, I'm gonna say it, they're not very good. And the reason they're not very good is because they don't realize that to be a good game dev, you just care about game dev. Like, yeah, you can say, oh yeah, no, the community likes my game, like a certain someone did, basing their entire success model on how much a bubble of community likes your game, but that doesn't tell me anything. Hell, the reason you're probably hearing most of these names for the first time. Like, and it's a shame, because I see a lot of people in this community with potential, but who I know are gonna get spoiled and just basically ruined by the very nepotistic, I'm not even sure nepotistic's a word, but let's roll with it, and solipsistic community. Because yeah, if you make a game that looks decent, or is good in just one particular way, people will praise it like it's doing nothing wrong. Axial cut this bad, because yeah, Axial has great looking graphics, there's no denying that. It looks very retrofitted, and it's nice to look at. But that's it. Like, I've gone into the problems I see in Axial in an actual review I did back when I was in the community. But the fact of the matter is, it didn't wow me. Like, it wasn't a game where I thought, oh wow, this has got a lot to it. I was just like, wow, these graphics are cool, but the rest of this game is fucking annoying. The characters felt very one-dimensional, and I think that's just due to sort of being pretty inexperienced as a writer. That's fine. Like, I'd expect that from the first game a person makes, because yes, it is his first game. And yes, the amount of, like, grinding in the game is just obnoxious. That might work for some people, but there's not many people who actively enjoy grinding up levels just so they have a chance to defeat a boss. There are hardcore masochists, but you need to make the battle system actually interesting, which Sawyer doesn't do. In fact, he raved about his mechanics, but then most of the mechanics were just barely even there, or were so basic, like bitches basic ass like mechanics, that it just helped me realize, wow, this guy has no idea what he's doing. But that's okay. I'd be welcoming of that because I can see the potential. But that potential's probably never going to be realized because he's been indoctrinated by this community who puts him up on a pedestal because his graphics are good, but then never tells him, yo, you could stand to, do this thing that makes your graphics a bit better. Like, it just... And yeah, this is what I mean by the community kind of self-cannibalizes itself, because it destroys projects either through enthusiasm for them or hatred for them before they've even had a chance to get off the ground. That said, if Sawyer just disconnected from the community and did his own thing, and learned to become a developer in his own right, he'd probably be fine. But he won't, because he's become too comfy with these comfortable lies he's being told. And yes, some people probably fully believe that, and that's the exact problem. The indoctrination has been going on for 10 years, and the fact that they use safe spaces, like, as a term, without any irony or realization that, yeah, safe spaces is a thing Tumblr shits did back in, like, 2010 to 2015 to try and, hide from prosecution from nothing. Like, from basically nothing. Like, yeah, no, like, it's basically just you putting up a shield and crying like a baby. That's what a safe space is. It's gathering in a small space and not wanting to deal with the hostility of the world, which is going to be there no matter what you do. And yeah, this, I guess you could say, is kind of my villain arc, because I'm going to make it very clear to the RPG community now that, yeah, I'm done taking your shit, and I'm done pretending to be nice, or rather, trying to be nice, only for it to have it just blown back in my face and said, no, you're being toxic. No, you guys think I'm being toxic, like, when I'm trying to be nice. Just wait until I'm actually toxic. That will really blow your mind. Because yeah, there's a reason I'm infamous in this community for being, kind of a mean. And that's because back in, like, 2012 to 2016, that's the way you had to be to get fucking anywhere. I mean, unless you dwelled on RPG Maker webs, but thankfully that wasn't an option for me, because I've been banned from those places. And yes, those bans were completely fabricated. Were on completely fabricated reasoning, aka the plagiarism affair, which didn't actually happen. But they want you to believe that, because that's the only, reasoning they have for why, for why I was removed from the community. Yeah, that's basically it. They didn't like me. That's the real reason. And the reason they didn't like me is because, as far as from what I can tell anyway, I'm unconventional. Like, I don't follow the basic ideology they do of you strut people up even if they're fucking terrible. Because that's just how we do in this safe space. Yeah, I'm a trans lesbian, but I just happen to have, a thing called spinal fluid. I'm able to take the hits because I've been taking L's for a long time, and they've made me stronger. Like, the fact is, the only reason the whole community just completely, saying, no, you're not welcome here, despite the fact that you're on your best behavior in years, it's not because of anything I really did. Yes, I did some things which were controversial, and that was just basically as a result of me being brought to breaking point by some idiots who just didn't understand how annoying this community is. It constantly, is its own worst enemy in a lot of ways. Because they don't seem to realize, a lot of the big devs who I mentioned earlier, not Nikarasu, because, again, he's kind of the exception, but people like Sawyer, yeah, even Sawyer to some extent. He used to be this way, but now he is, because he's been indoctrinated in the scene long enough. And especially people like Jeff Will Black and Tron, and just others as well, but I couldn't be fucked reaching for names, because I don't really pay much attention to the people who do this shit, I just know they do it. Because, yeah, taking note of terrible, annoying behavior isn't exactly something I'm motivated to do. But the fact is, they take themselves very seriously, and sometimes, in irony, will claim that their game is the best game ever made. Obviously, they don't believe that, because if they did, they'd be a laughingstock by the end of the day. People seem to think I differ. Yes, I prop up my game, and yes, I do fully believe it's better than any of the trash this community produces, and that's more based in the fact that, yeah, it kinda is. Yeah, my games are popular in more places than just the RPG Maker community, because I'm not a coward who's just basically stayed within the RPG Maker community. But the fact is, them taking themselves seriously and pretending that they know what they're talking about is just laughable, because they don't. Most of them have been not even alive as long as I've been making games, and yet they think they have the right and pass to talk about games and game making like they know anything. I mean, they know a few things, they'd have to, but keep in mind, all of these people who take themselves so seriously are on their first game, some of them their second. I've made, let's see, I can't even remember, but of just my release games, which has only been within the last 10 years I've even been releasing games, that's 11 games. Some of them aren't around anymore because they were shit, but I'm willing to admit that. I'm willing to admit, yeah, I made some complete fucking downers, some games that just didn't meet up to it. The fact that I've got many games Menagerie with a title in the end called Remastered shows that, yeah, no, there's definitely problems with my own games, and I've worked to correct them over time. I do the remake thing quite a lot, not because I think it's an easy cash grab. I don't charge for my games. It's just I want to deliver an even better experience than what people thought they had as it was. I like making games just because making games is a blast. I think it's very fun, and I think at the end of the day, that's what we should all focus on. But the thing is, the community is obsessed with status, despite the fact they have none. Yeah, in the RPG Maker community, having status, it doesn't mean shit. If you want to go into status I have in the RPG Maker community, I was at one point a person whose game was hailed, despite the fact it looked like Rainbow Vomit trash. I have several, of the year awards, Game of the Year, Demo of the Year, Best Animation, yada yada, but those don't mean fucking anything, and I can say that with fidelity, because I don't go sprucing my profile up with those awards, because they're from forums which don't even exist anymore. And that's the thing, even awards from RPG Maker Web, I see those and I think, oh boy, this person sure succeeded at being a cocksucker. And here's the main issue that I see with the RPG Maker community. Your success isn't going to depend on how good your game is, because if it did, there would be a lot of devs who do amazing work, such as StarMage, getting a lot more attention and starlighting than they do. But no, they celebrate people like Trailblazer, not because his game is even that good. No, actually, his game is pretty mid. Shocker, yeah, I thought it was mid. But the fact is, they put him up and people like Sir up on a pedestal because they don't do anything particularly wrong. They don't go against convention and say, oh yeah, no, but this thing is the thing I believe in. Because, again, they're cowards. Like, The Dying Light is the most safe spacey fucking game I've ever seen. The character art, I mean, I've just gotta say, I feel sorry for the artists who had to work on that art, because the character designs are so fucking boring and just deviant art level of generic, with just having enough edge mixed in to make it impossible to take seriously, but having about the subtlety of characterization as a porno. I really don't understand how anyone can look at that game with the eyes they have in their head and say, yeah, no, this is a masterpiece. It isn't. It's alright. By RPG Maker community standards, it's pretty good even. But not because by gaming standards the game is good, just because the bar is so fucking low. Like the fact you can excel at one thing in a games like Retinue and come out as okay in the community just goes to show that this community doesn't really understand what good looks like. Like StarMage is a person who puts work into every aspect of, making a game. Like the graphics, the characterization, the music, everything. They give everything their best. And I also do this. In fact, I have custom basically fucking everything. Even down to most of the sound effects being custom. Like, I have entirely custom built OSTs. They cost me a lot of money to have made. But I do it because I believe that's the spice my games need. And I don't even charge for my games, despite being one of the most qualified people to do that. And why don't I charge for my games, you ask? Because they're not fucking worth, that kind of money. Oops. So I was trying to get close to my mic for a dramatic effect, but it doesn't work. Anyway. The reason I don't charge for my games is because I don't believe in that shit. Like, I'm an altruist. I'd rather people just be able to fucking have one game they can download for free and just enjoy it. Helltake is a good example of, games that do this and are a blast. Because, yeah, you can make games for free and still feel good about yourself. And yeah, the games that these people are making are free, but they're mediocre, or mid at best. Like, yeah, Sawyer's game looks great, but that's its only appeal. Like, there's some in-jokes around it, but those have only become anything of anything because of how the community purports it. The same goes with Trailblazer. The writing is good. That's about it. Yes, I know the graphics are okay, but that's only because it's leaning on RPG Maker assets and taking them a bit further. It's not doing anything that's risking anything, and this is the main issue with the RPG Maker community, is they're terrified of taking risks. Like, you can say all they want that, throwing me under the bus was a risk, but it wasn't. Okay? Because there's nothing I could say that will tear them apart, because they've been living in this little fucknut circle jerk for over a decade now. I'm not going to tear it apart no matter what I do, and I don't mind them staying together, because, yeah, who cares? It's their business, and I can profit off of the fact I can know that they're never going to get anywhere in the mainstream of games, or even just, anywhere outside of their little bubble, because they don't want to move beyond that. But the fact that they'll, be like, oh yeah, no, this game is good because good voice acting, or this game is good because good graphics, but never because good just all around, that's, yeah, having one good thing about your game and the rest be mid is not a selling point. Most AAA games, and come on, you know how much I don't really take the AAA industry seriously, even they can manage to get at least 3 things right, usually. Not always, but usually. And yeah, the fact is, like, most of their games don't even achieve what they set out to achieve in the first place, assuming they even remember what it was they wanted to achieve with the game. And that's because they just don't ask themselves the vital question. It's like, why am I making this game? Why is this game important to me specifically? Why do I care about this project? I never really seem to ask that, because they never go that mile to make their project stand out. It's always just the same fucking thing. Yes, there's variations, but at the end of the day, it all feels like pretty generic crap. Like, it's mid, at best. And I think they could be a lot more if they just realized that being obsessed with status in a bubble of community that no one has heard of outside of that bubble, or even wants to pay attention to due to the stigma that these people are more responsible than anything for continuing to propagate, is a very bad business decision. Like, even if, they are just soulless fuckwits, they're not. They have hearts. I know, I've hung around with most of them long enough to see that, yeah, no, you guys have hearts, they're just awfully misplaced, and don't understand what it takes to make a good game. So if you see me going, like, a bit feral on some itch.io threads relating to this community, just know it's because I've taken the cap off. Like, the coat's off now, I'm just gonna go feral on these guys, and there's nothing they can really do about it, because they've already done everything they can to try and get rid of me, and they failed. You can ban me from your Discord, you can try to get my videos taken down on YouTube, only to fail anyway, you can ban me from all the forums. It doesn't fucking matter. Because at the end of the day, the places where you're going to get the most traction aren't run by you, and that, I assure you, is for the best. Because, yeah, safe spacing is all well and good if you're just trying to have a nice little time with friends. That is understandable. I have my own safe space, quote unquote, that I often, hang out on because I have friends there, and we're just chillin'. But I don't base my career around that group of friends. Yes, one of them is passionate about my games, and I do often make changes on their feedback. But it's because they care about the game that I take that feedback on board and say, hey, no, this is actually a good idea. Because I've been making games long enough to see when something's going to go terribly. And the ideas that they have given me, few as they have been good. But yeah, the thing is, the community that I'm referring to here, the safe space, won't ever tell someone that, no, your game needs some major work, and here's a couple of revisions you could consider. They never do that. Unless they're newbies, and therefore they aren't risking anything, because talking down to the newbies is the best way for them to exercise their repressed negativity. Because, yeah, they can't show negativity for anyone within the circle jerk, because that would tear the entire safe space apart. Here's a fun reminder, that's going to be torn apart by you, eventually. And there's nothing I can do to help make that happen faster. Because, as I've already said, you guys are your own worst nightmare. And they are, to the people who don't know what the fuck all this is really about. Yeah, they often self-cannibalize each other. They've done it several times in the past. See my other video about how Yanfly, Kaz, and several others have been just thrown under the bus so others can feel better. And yes, they did the same shit to me, despite the fact I was once praised by them. But boy, am I glad that they did throw me under the bus, because now I've learned to not only get past their bullshit, I've transcended it, and can now just be the villain they've always wanted me to be, but I just haven't been because of various reasons. Like various things like my apathy, or just not really wanting to start a fire that would be hard to put out. But now, there's no reason for me to hold back. Like, I've looked into it, and I've surmised that, yeah, no. Why do I care anymore? Like, if you guys are going to be mean to me, I will fire back with 1,000 more bullets than you ever could have thought to put in your magazine. Because, yeah, you guys might think, oh, we can bring the hammer down when you need to. But the thing is, you mostly rely on bans to do that, and you can't do that in places like itch.io, where you don't have any administrative authority. What then? Did you ever think for a moment that the premise of your idealistic crusade might be flawed? For you to continue living in this safe space, it means that everyone must be on board and desire to keep being so. But, if say, one of the cogs in your machine decides, no, I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to do everything I can, or just maybe until I get bored, to bring this thing apart, what then? What can you really do to stop them? And that's just it. I probably won't stop you being terrible pieces of shit, because only you can really do that. But at this point, I'm not here to teach you how to be good anymore. I'm not teaching you, look, maybe being a solipsistic seeking piece of nepotistic garbage is bad for your mental state. No, I've tried that. I've tried to be the best version of me for this community. And my response was, very toxic. So, yeah. You want to see what toxic looks like? Because me being toxic is a very different monster to what you imagine. You probably just think, oh, you're gonna swear a lot. No, me swearing is the least of your worries. I'm not trying to, like, hype myself up here, because honestly, I'll probably forget about this whole fucking crusade in, like, a week. But the fact is, I'm not dangerous because of the things I can say. I'm dangerous because I know you pathetic sacks of shit better than most of you yourselves do. I know your weaknesses. I know most of you are horribly insecure, as people like Tron, Will Jeff Black, and Sawyer constantly point out. You're not good game devs. You're just status-obsessed dicks. And the fact is, I can hold that over your head, and it will never stop being fucking funny, because there's a huge irony to being status-obsessed dicks in a community that has no status beyond just being at best fringe and at worst stigmatized. Like, you guys aren't savants of game design or anything. You're just lying to yourselves about how good you are, because that's the only way you can feel any comfort in your tragic, like, lives. I transcended that bullshit. Like, I know there's game devs out there who are better than me. StarMage is probably one of them. And I'm good friends with StarMage. And you know the reason they're good is because they don't fucking bother with the solipsistic circle jerk. They don't really understand it. They just are here to make good games, same as I am. And you might notice, like, in comparison to people like Tron and Jeff Will Black and all these other names you're probably hearing for the first time unless you're involved in this community, StarMage and I have several games, like usually more than 8 just on our itch.io page, and I dread to think how many StarMage has done that have never seen the public's eye, because I'm the same way. Like, when I count my projects, it's like, do I just count the ones I've released, the ones I've thought about releasing, or the ones I've just made for fun and never even considered releasing, or the ones I did for practice? Because we're looking at hundreds of games by the time we start just factoring any single notion that could be considered one. So yeah, I'm sure the people who have made, like, the 2 games on itch have done other games, but to say they're as experienced or have any right to be criticizing people like me or StarMage, or even have any right to be status-obsessed dicks, when even me and StarMage aren't status-obsessed dicks, and yet we can actually make good games, unlike them, who can make at best mid, maybe a bit above par, and only, again, because the bar for quality in that community is so fucking low. Yeah. Let's just say I don't really have anything to fear from you guys. Like, I thought I did. I thought, okay, maybe there's something actually worrisome about this community. Maybe they do have a secret weapon game. You don't. Like, if your fucking best is Trailblazer, I can't wait to tear apart the worst. By which I mean, I'm not going to do anything in regards to playing these games beyond what I have already, because I've seen enough. I know it's going to basically occupy most of the echo chamber space. And I think the people who are new to this community have, like, all these games have a lot of potential, But because the people are so indoctrinated in this status-obsessed circle jerk that the community has put them into, they're never really going to transcend it, and the game's never going to see that potential reached. And that's fucking sad, man. Because, like, at the end of the day, I just want to see people who can make good games. I would not mind having competitors from the RPG Maker community actually be able to hold a candle to me. And I thought for a second, a game as overhyped as Axia was might actually be able to do that, because before I played it, I had no idea that it was just living on one single strength, and the rest was just at best mid, and some of it was genuinely horrible. Yeah. No, the game has soul, but it's all in the art. Like, when I saw the game and its wacky graphics, I thought, okay, cool. This is gonna have, like, funny flavor dialogue on every item you can interact with. No. It's a toaster. It's a microwave. That's not funny flavor dialogue. I think anyone can see with their own two fucking eyes what those things are, and if they can't, it just means you need to do a better job of presenting them, assuming it even matters to the story, which it probably doesn't. Because yeah, shocker, having a toaster in your house in a game about a conflict with a evil organization probably isn't the biggest reveal of reveals, and probably doesn't even need explaining. You know what you could do instead? Have a conversation around that said toaster that helps grow and characterize the people you're supposed to care about in the game. That would be a far better use of flavor text, and it's what I do in my games, and it's what StarMage, for the most part, does in theirs. StarMage and I grow off each other because we're good developers. We actually care about making an experience that's good, and we don't even charge for our games. And this brings me to the crux of why I think this community is so hilarious. They want to be taken seriously. More than anything, they just want the approval. But they don't realize the reason me and StarMage get that approval from far more places than just a community that was dead to me long ago is because approval to us is just a second, at best. The thing we care about is making a good game and making our players happy. Foreign concept, I know, to any of the people who are actually in that community. But yeah, making players happy and having a good time making a game are what you should ultimately care about. Being a status-obsessed dick, all that can wait. That's not important. You don't want to become the fucking person who made Daikatana, do you? I can't remember his name though, like John Romero or something? Yeah, John Romero. Yeah, don't get me wrong, his art is great, but he was good because he had Dan Harmon to back him up with coding. The reason the Doom game went well is because it had a collective of all the best things of its time. It had good music, most of it was written by Nine Inch Nails, by the way, or other metal bands. You had, you know, an amazing art direction, courtesy of Romero. You had some of the best coding that was seen in that day and age, to the point that even, like, the entire thing, despite being broad capacity, can be run on a toaster. No, you had some of the best in the business, and the game shined for that because it was a passion project they all shared. Daikatana, meanwhile, was a guy who thought he was much hotter shit than he actually is, making a game that ultimately just didn't sell, because it was basically focused, like Axio is, in the art department, but had no other soul to it than that. That's a problem to me there, because that shows a complete lack of wanting to make the players happy. That was John Romero trying to pat himself on the back, and that's why that game backfired disastrously. I can use real examples as well. I don't have to use my games, but I use my games because it's a lighter blow. Like telling you that you'll never be at this level, comparing you to a AAA title, is far meaner than comparing you to little old me, who is still a nobody, but unlike the rest of you chuckle fucks in the community, I can actually understand that, and even despite my nobody status, I'm still far more respected than any of you will ever be, even inside your own circle jerk of nepotism and solipsism. There's nothing that's holding me back from making the games I love, because I don't rate my game's success based on how much it improved my status in a fucking community that stopped mattering. I make games to please, and I make games to have my own fun. That's what game making should be about. You can make a terrible game doing this, but then you just don't release it. Like I said in a certain post that I'm not going to share, because, yeah, it's for the people who deserve it, not for you lovely friendos to read. Yeah, the people in this community tend to have this affixation with getting one thing right and then just kind of snowballing the rest, leading it to be this really mediocre shit show of, oh hey, you did this one thing really cool, but the rest is mid to bottom. Whereas me, if you've seen anything of my games, you can tell I put everything in. Like, I have custom OSTs made for the game. I pay good money to have those OSTs built. Same with the art. Same with voice acting and everything. Some of my voice acting isn't quite up to the par, but it's passable, and most of it's actually more than serviceable. And the fact that the only thing the RPG Maker community, in all its wisdom, could tear me down on was a couple voice actors, most of them being me, which is like, yeah, of course my voice acting isn't going to be up to your standards. But the fact is, most of those voice actors that they were ragging on, some of them were actually professionals who know what they're doing. But the thing is, and this is a big one, they don't have any concept of quality. Like, that community, like I said, it constantly, I've forgotten the word now, cannibalizes itself. And that's because they don't know what a good game entails. They don't know how to make things work well. And their attempts at doing so don't leave me with a whole lot of confidence they ever will. Because yeah, Axial looks great. The rest of the game, though, could basically be done by any child. And I would be sympathetic to this game if it was made by a child who was learning, and this was just, a passion project. I'd be like, yeah, good job, keep going. And that's exactly what I was like. But I don't think that game's gonna go anywhere. And this is because the developer, and I know how much they love to throw this insult around about me, is unwilling to shift his feet. Yes, Sawyer will change baseline things, but I've tried to tell him, look, most people don't actually enjoy, on-map encounters. Or sorry, like random encounters, or even on-map encounters if they drag on. Most people are gonna find these battle mechanics pretty annoying. And I said that to him because I cared about making his game better for him and for everyone else. To help him realize that, yeah, no, you don't have to do things a certain way. You can if you want, but I don't think it's going to serve either you or your player base that well. But he didn't listen. You know why he didn't listen? It's because people try to assure him that Biz doesn't know, or Remi in this case, doesn't really know what they're talking about, despite the fact they've got more experience than any of these dipshits. That's a problem to me there, because it's invalidating what I tried to make into... Like, I was trying to be legitimately helpful. I was trying to say, look, you can do this thing and make this game a bit better. Like, I can see this game as potential, and I want to just to help you realize it. I'm not going to take credit. I'm not going to say, like, you have to put me in credits. Because to me, I'd just be doing that as a public service. Because that's the kind of person I generally am. I just like helping people realize their vision. And telling them, like, this might be a bit of an like, maybe try avoiding doing this. And yeah, it works. Except it doesn't in this community. Like in most like in most indie game dev communities, people will be like, oh yeah, no, that's a good point. They may not go ahead with implementing it, but they'll have it in their mind, either for the next game, or they'll reflect on it if the game doesn't, do great. They'll be like, okay, where did I go wrong? This. Like, I'm not trying to be some pariah and say that my feedback is going to be the be-all end-all best advice you'll get. But I also don't think it's entirely worth dismissing just because of my name. Especially when my name, more than anything, shows years of battered down experience and people trying to tear me down. Yet here I still am, making games and loving doing it. Because again, being obsessed with status has never been my thing. I don't care. The fact I'm willing to just make myself the enemy of this community just because it's fun, no any other reason. Like, I'm done trying to fucking lecture these people and help them grow, because they're not gonna fucking grow. And this entire video is just to showcase that. No, they're just lost in their own stupid cycle of muddled, nepotism and insecurity. And I just think it would be fun to have it crash all down. I'm probably not going to cause it to crash all down, because chances are they're just going to see my videos and my posts and be like, oh yeah, it's just Remi talking shit again, whatever. And they'll just take it on notice. Because, yeah, I'm not going to be the person to shatter their illusion, but it is going to shatter, one day or another. Granted, they haven't grown up in 10 years, because yes, nothing has really changed from 2012 till now. This shit has been going on for a decade, and I wish that was a joke. And yeah. But to the people who haven't gotten fully indoctrinated by this community, let me give you a pro tip that I and several others have benefited from. Don't let people in this community control you, because they will try to. Like, you want to see an example of someone being abusive and manipulative? Try Remi-Chan. Yeah, I know, I'm reaching for an old dead horse here, because I've made it very clear he's a waste of everyone's fucking time. But the point is, he tried to make me into something that the community wanted me to be. And when I said, no, I refuse to be the model person you want me to be, because that shit is not my game. I'm not here to suck your dicks. Then, the response was, well, I'd rather you just weren't in this community. Yeah, that's the kind of person we're dealing with, and he's pretty fresh to the scene. People like Jeff All Black have gotten this act of, like, pretending to care about you and your, thing, down to a science, only to just basically force your game into mediocrity by saying, I like this, but you could work on this. But the thing they ask you to work on, it's just them saying, oh yeah, no, this color is a bit weird. It's completely artificial, superficial details, and they're not going to help you realize your vision. And that's because these people have no vision. They've never had it. They've been living for 10 years in this bubble of mediocrity that is the RPG Maker mainline community. And how many games have come out of that community from those people that have ever reached anyone but that bubble? Yeah, it's fucking none. And the reason for that is because none of them are any fucking good. Like, you can say all you want that I'm toxic about this, but that's fine, because I actually have reason to be toxic to these people. Like, these people threw me under the bus. They tried to lie about me and say I was a plagiarist for years, which was complete bullshit. See my other video on the topic that's got 10 likes. Thank you, my community. I love you all. But yeah, the fact that I'm toxic is just the reaction to their initial assessment of me. Yeah, I did some stupid things, but so has every one of them. But because they've apologized and sucked the dicks of the people who run this shit, they get a pass. That doesn't inspire me with a lot of confidence for this community, because you can just have all your bad qualities scrubbed away by just sucking off the people who have the authority, power, and who are respected. And the thing is, those people in that position of power probably never really deserve to be there, and are only there by technicality. Touch Fuzzy and fucking Indra and Celiana are good examples of this. Like Celiana, her resources are good, and I could put up with the fact she's in resource stuff. Her being a global mod, which she isn't, by the way. But I'm just saying, like, this is the kind of fervor people hold for these quote-unquote RPG Maker celebrities. Have you ever heard of a good game by Celiana? No. I know she has a game she's making. It's called Taylor Tales. It's a visual novel. If you've never heard of it, then yeah, I assure you that's for the best, because it's dog shit. It's basically like hopelessly intertwined fantasy, like, it's just a harem anime. And, well, harem, yeah, you get it. It's a visual novel, and like most people in the West, it's got the subtlety of a porno, while trying to play it straight and trying to be wholesome. Because yeah, Celiana, she's great at making resources. I wouldn't say she's very good at making games. Like, she can make an alright game, but generally speaking, most of her games come off as just pretentious. And this can go with most of the bigger names, and yes, I still chuckle whenever I say that, in the RPG making community, because they're big names in that community and nowhere else. Like Hawk Zombie, for instance, I don't even know what games he makes. I have no interest in him as a person, and his political posts in regards to the community haven't helped that. Nikarasu, I actually care about what he makes, despite, because he's big in the community, but that's because he just doesn't take anyone's shit. He just is his own guy and does his own thing, and the community has sort of just had to realize that he hasn't done enough wrong to really get rid of him. And he's got a very charismatic energy, kind of like I probably do, and because of that, he's able to pull this off. People like Skyforger or Kiss Your Arts or whatever the fuck he goes by now, they don't make very good games. Like Traum, and I will say this again, because he's already review bombed the game that I've made because he's that petty. Yeah, your game Traum was fucking terrible. It was basically, I don't even know what you were trying to do with the game. All the characters were utterly unlikable. I tried to like it, alright? I really did. Because the art style was semi-appealing, but it makes a mistake a lot of RPG Maker horror games do, of going that bit too far into realism and just becoming uncanny valley. Not helped by the fact that the RTP, it's mostly RTP, just with extra touches and animations for the sprites, which just don't help the overall experience. And it's a horror game made in RPG Maker, which is its first big mistake. The second mistake is, when you make a horror game, you have to worry about losing something. In Traum, all the characters are utterly fucking unlikable. Like, Alyssa and Seinfeld, yeah, the characters are horrible people, basically evil, especially when it gets further into the show, but they're hilarious, and come off as almost charismatic in how terrible they are, and it's funny. It works because the characters are written in a way that, yeah, can excuse their horrible qualities just because we want to see where their adventure takes them. Ed and Eddie by Denny and Tanuki is another good example. Yeah, these kids are basically scamming the entire cul-de-sac out of their pocket change whenever they get a chance. But because the characters themselves are so flawed, but are still trying desperately to get on in a world that they didn't create, it works. Like, you genuinely empathize with the characters, and I find it genuinely painful to watch some of the episodes where the Eddies really get screwed over because it's tragic. Despite the fact that these characters entirely earn those situations, entirely bring all that terribleness upon themselves, it feels horrible to watch because you've come to really care about these characters. In Traum though, that effect isn't there. The characters feel like fucking aliens because they're not well written. And in my game, despite some of the characters being literal aliens, they're still personable, they're human. And I'm not going to get on my game because there's plenty of other examples that I could go into the same thing of. Like Invader Zim, for instance. He wants to destroy Earth, that's his entire goal. But yet we're rooting for him in that show because he's that fucking charming and likable. And the satirical version of Earth that Jonan Vasquez paints does a good job of making us think, yeah, no, you know, this dust ball could disappear and no one would really miss it. Like, it's a bit nihilistic, but that's the show's bread and butter, because it centers around the adventures of an alien who just wants to destroy Earth to make his senpai proud of him, or even just notice him, and the kid who is human, who you actually, it's just funny watching him get dunked on. You honestly kind of dislike it when he wins, because he's just every nerd who thinks they're more than they are. Anyway, my point being that, yeah, Traum, your characters are utterly unlikable. You do nothing to help build anything of player interest in them, and then you expect us to care when you kill them off. That's a mistake a lot of horror games fall into, but I praise you for being so blind to the tropes that you made the exact same mistakes, despite having the opportunity to capitalize on the failings of a genre, which is horror games, which is a joke genre in and of itself. Like, 'cause when I see horror games, like Dead Space, I'm like, oh boy, you're selling me on the idea that something out there is scary. That's it. That's your entire fucking premise. And the fact that most of these games end up becoming action games later in their sequelized lives just shows that, yeah, just being a horror game with jump scares, or even, like, anything like that, it's not a selling point. Like, Dead Space is still revered as one of the better games because it didn't resort to the action shit. Because it still has that ambient, atmospheric horror. Your game doesn't have that. It's honestly cheesy, where the horror elements do kick in. And honestly, I'm rooting for the people trying to kill the main character. Because at least I can understand why they might want their character to die. He's a sad, insecure man-child, who's basically only got a wife because she pity-fucked him, making him the literal definition of a chuckle fuck. And yeah, I don't have any relation to him. You made no relatable ties to that character, because he's just a piece of shit, with no strings attached. So when the character dies, I'm like, oh good, he got what he deserved. Like, when the things are out to kill the character, I'm like, yeah, no, I get why you guys would want this character to die. It's not for the reasons you state, but I can definitely see why he might have ticked off a few people. I mean, yeah, it's just, you try to set up this narrative where there's this, like, real-life drama going on, but the thing is, the character seems to be mostly responsible for all of it, and we're supposed to sympathize with him. We don't. And the fact that my review, back then, hit you hard enough that you would go out of your way to just review on my game now, which again, I don't care about, because, yeah, I grew up in a time when that shit was the norm. I learned to deal with an environment that basically revolves around tearing each other down. I'm used to it, so nothing you can do will do anything but just tell me, oh, I made your day worse. Good for me. Because, yeah, there's nothing I enjoy more than knowing that my review struck a chord with you, even if my review's point was that this game is bad and I see no potential in it. Unlike Sawyer's game Axial, where I do actually see the halo of potential, but no one will never reach it because Sawyer's too busy having his dick sucked by the circle of nepotism, that is, the solipsistic circle jerk of the RPG Maker mainline community. Traum, in its own space, can't succeed. It's visually okay, purely because it goes for the realism angle and takes no risks whatsoever. And the game doesn't try anything new. It's just a horror game, but with bobble-headed graphics, trying to come off as realistic, but just ending up in the Uncanny Valley territory. It doesn't work, and it never will. And I'm glad you ditched the fucking game idea, because yeah, it ain't shit. So yeah, there you go, Skyforger. There's a recap of your review. Except now, more than like 2 people know about it. Because yeah, I posted that review of your game. I think it was on Studio Blue's Discord, which I'm banned from now. Because yeah, back then Studio Blue was incredibly insecure. They're a bit better now, because they're actually trying to address issues in the RPG Maker community. But they're going about it the wrong way. But I'm not going to go into them, because I don't have any real beef with them. I think they're at least trying, to address the blatant misrepresentation of people in this community. They're trying to say that no, this trauma is probably not okay. But they're just not realizing that the cause of it is just this cycle of nepotism and dick-waving that this community's been going through for 10 years. And it's probably at the point where there's no real way to help it, because the people have become too comfortable in the routine. That's not to say that it won't eventually crumble, because it probably will. Because eventually, something's gonna give. And someone with... I mean, look at how much they fucking, like, got their shit in a knot when some review bombers came along and humbled their games. And honestly, deserved. You'd been writing that 5-star rating way too hard. And I think it's fucking hilarious you're brought down to the level you actually are. Because yeah, like I said many times now, your games are mid. They might excel in one area and then just be mid or even mediocre elsewhere. making games that are safe is not making games that are good. Most AAA devs will make games that are safe. You know when a game is good? When it takes risks. When it says, I'm not afraid to be something more, and it shoots for the stars instead of stopping at the moon. I know that's a pretty bad analogy, but look, the point is, don't let your dreams be memes, and don't let yourself be manipulated by these psychotic chuckle fucks, because their utmost desire is to see you fail so they can continue to succeed by merit of their own fucking mediocre trash. The reason people like... I can't remember their names half the time. Jeff All Black, Remi-Chan, and Sawyer have a kind of hegemony in this community is not because their games are any good. It's just because anyone who makes a game with more potential, they try to rein down to the level where it's either an equal alongside them, or it's just blatantly better, or worse. In the case it's blatantly better, they generally will try to pretend it's not as good, even though it is. People like me and Star Mage are the reminder of these people's insecurities, that, yeah, there are bigger fish out there than you, and we're very glad to, well, I mean, Star Mage is chill. Star Mage will never lift a finger to do anything bad by this community, because unlike me, he isn't toxic. I am toxic, and I lean into that behavior. I try to be better, for the sake of the community. For the community to just basically bring that whole shit show down and say, no, you're terrible, not because of anything you actually did, but because I don't like that your games look, sound, and feel better than mine, how dare you. Yeah, I'm gonna take that personally, thank you, and I have full right to. Because if you're trying to tell me that the only reason you won't accept me is because you're jealous, that's fucking laughable, and I would take great pleasure in demonstrating how jealous the load of you fucking are. Of both me and of all the people you've tried to raid in, failed, and when told by them, no, you guys are kind of terrible, exercised because you know they're right. Like, yeah, the RPG community does not get any attention beyond its own little bubble. And the reason for that is they're fucking terrible people. They make, at best, mid games. Most of them can be described by, oh, just RPG Maker shit on with a different coat of paint, or a different like set of voice actors. Yeah, no, they can subsist in their own little bubble all they like. But the fact is, most of the people who are watching this video probably have no idea who these people are. And the only reason I know who these people are is because I tried to do the best I could by them, only for it to have it all blown back in my face. Which, yeah, gets me to where I am now. I am on my villain arc. And yeah, I mean, I probably won't stick out for long because I just don't really feel like wasting much of my energy on this. But I am doing it as a concept to see how much I can piss them off beyond what I have already. Because yeah, there's nothing more funny than watching people who are insecure and incredibly egotistical, despite them trying to point that shit on me, which is just chef's kiss, the peak of, you know, deflection, or reflection, or fuck, I've forgotten the word for it. But yeah, the point is, they aren't well known of at all. The only game to come out of the RPG Maker community that anyone cared about recently is One Shot, and recently is a strong word, it was like over 8 years ago now. But the fact is, that was made by a developer who does not work within this community. He has no ties to the community, and it shows, because he put everything into making that game the masterpiece that it is. He didn't cry for status, he just kind of got it because he made a game that is good. The same way I am now gaining traction, far more than these dipshits could ever comprehend. Despite the fact I'm still a nobody in the long run of things, I can rest easy knowing I'll never be as much of a nobody as these clowns choose to be. I thought I was going to end the video there, and I probably am. But yeah, in closing, don't be trapped by this. Like, if you're new to this whole thing, I encourage you to keep as far away from the mainline RPG Maker community as you can. I personally go to every length I can to disguise the fact that my games are made in RPG Maker, because I don't see using RPG Maker as a badge of honor. I see it as a badge of shame. But I know I have way too much fun doing it in this engine to stop, so instead I just make it really hard to tell that it was made in this engine, and that's why I've gotten a following, beyond just me actually caring about making a good game for people to enjoy and not charging for it. Like, yes, I am a threat to that community and their bubble, because if they ever want to sell these games, and yes, some of the people do think about selling these games, like Moonchild, for instance, costs $10 on Steam. It's not even worth $1. And yeah, I could write that, and like, yeah, I brought this to the devs' attention that yeah, if the trailer for this game is to represent what the game is, I don't think it's worth $10. Yeah, he had a fucking meltdown. I'm not even sure if he has any real involvement in the mainline RPG Maker community. But the fact is, the game did nothing to hide that it was just another generic RPG Maker shill game. It used just edits of the RTP, or just the RTP baseline, and made no real attempt to be something more. And that's a lot of the games that are actually charged for. Meanwhile, Star Mage's games, they go above and beyond to be something else. Granted, Star Mage doesn't have as much custom stuff as I do, because they don't have the ability to afford it. I'm in a very, like, privileged position here, because I get, you know, the kind of money where I can afford to pay to have my games, you know, done. So I could do it all myself, well, except the music, because I can't do music. But the fact is, I'm willing to put the money forward, and I'm okay with that. Star Mage can't, because he doesn't earn the kind of money I do, but he can still make a game that stands out, because he does enough different, and doesn't rely on the RTP, and, you know, tries to make his game stand out on their own merits, rather than solipsism, rather than the nepotism of the community that he's not even trying to impress and never once has. And that's something I think we get along, that's something we both get. It's like, yeah, no, the RPG Maker community is just one part of the indie game dev scene, and it's a very obscure part. Like, here's an example. When I was talking to my friend Wolfman the other day about all this, I was trying to find Jeff Woolblack's channel, you know, the guy who made Trailblazer, and for the life of me, despite wanting to, I couldn't. Because he was outplayed by people who actually had a presence in the community, and even then I had to put RPG Maker in to not just get other stuff unrelated to the RPG Maker community. Meanwhile, I can Google search Menagerie Remastered and my game will come up immediately. I just put in Trailblazer, I'll get shoes. That's not even a joke, yeah, no. And like, my games have this a lot, because I just name my games one word titles, usually based on words that already exist. Intelligence, perseverance, menagerie, the list goes on. And yeah, it's hard to find my games if you put just those words in, but you'd expect that for anything. But then you put in Fantasia Surreal Cosmic Progeny, yeah, my game will come up, no problems. And yeah, like, you put those subtitles in, they'll work. But for Trailblazer, you have to put in Trailblazer RPG Maker, and even then it may not come up. Yeah, I was doing a few tests just to see, do they have any sphere of influence outside their little circle jerk? The answer is no, they don't. Most of these people don't even have active Twitter accounts, or if they do, they're incredibly, like, undernourished. Sigma Seeker, the guy who recently got in a lot of trouble for just being himself, and being who he basically had to be, because if he didn't, he would be prosecuted in his country of origin. Yeah, that guy has more followers than most of the clowns who think they're hot shit, and who think they have a foot in the door. I don't know about Hawk Zombie, again, I don't care about him. Like, I don't bother looking into his shit, because I find, like, from what I've heard, he's just kind of a terrible person. And not for the reasons I'm terrible, because I don't pretend that, you know, I'm good for this community. I'm absolutely the worst thing for this community, but that's because this community is the worst thing for game making in general. Like, there is no better way to crush ambitions and just completely deflower people's work than showing it to this community. Like, I can attest to that because I've been a part of this community for over 10 years, but most of it's been at a distance. And when I tried to get closer to them and say, hey, maybe we can be chill now, it went disastrously. Not because of any real problems I created, just because I don't adhere to the conventions. I don't pretend I give a rat's ass about their safe spaces. And I'll tell people what I think about their premise is flawed. Not to be a dick, but because I want to help them. See that, yeah, maybe this won't work, but I'm sure it can if you just try to, mold some stuff into it. And most of the people actually did listen. Because, yeah, a voice of reason who's actually willing to tell them what the fundamental flaws of their game might be is a refreshing change of pace. People actually, for the most part, dig it when people are direct. I got my words mixed up. And yeah, because of that, I just couldn't stay. Because I was a good influence on the community, and I was taking them away from the solipsistic circle jerk they'd all come to know and love, or at least the people at the top. Because yeah, I was a threat, and I will always be a threat to them. Because one, I make games, and they are, and I say this with no ego, this is just factually evident, and you only need to compare screenshots to see how much this is true. My games are better than theirs, and I don't charge for them, and I would never think of doing that. I'm just here to give people a game and a good time. There doesn't need to be any money or, status attached to that. I've never wanted that to be attached to it. And the fact that these guys seem to think that's so important is exactly why I'm a threat to them. Because to them, I threaten their entire business model, purely by the fact that I can make better games than they do, and charge nothing for it, expect nothing for it. I just love to give. And this is the person they're trying to pin down as a toxic motherfucker. Yeah, okay. You want to see a toxic motherfucker? Because this is it. Because me being toxic isn't just swearing and yelling at you, because anyone can fucking do that. Tron can do that. He did that. I'm not going to show it, because I don't think I need to. And even if I did, you people still wouldn't believe it, because you're so indoctrinated by your own cloak of bullshit. Nothing I say is gonna, show you what a dickhead Tron is. And that's because to admit Tron's a dickhead, you also have to admit you yourselves are dickheads. This is something I found when trying to respond to his video about, how I'm in the Shadow Realm. I don't mind being in the Shadow Realm. In fact, it's very fitting that I would be put in the Shadow Realm by someone who can't stand it when people throw shade, which I'm apparently the only one ballsy enough to do in this community. So it makes complete sense. No, I could have done it without, the lying to people about what I am, because you honestly believe I'm deaf to feedback when I thrive on it, and I make good on it. The fact that, like Nikarasu spit roasted me completely, but I was okay with that, because he'd actually played the game, so he had some merit to his reasoning. I think after a point he did tune a lot out, but the fact is I could see where his criticisms were valid, and I went to extraneous work to correct the issues my game had, because I appreciated the fact he would take time out of his day to do that for me. Especially when it caused him so much potential suffering, because the game just wasn't for him. And also, I think at that point he was in Studio Blue's pocket, back when Studio Blue, were not the Studio Blue of today, but something a bit more carbalistic and evil. But yeah, that's all in the past, but I do think it's important to notice that, yeah, I'll take advice on board, and sometimes completely renovate my game if I think it'll mean a better experience for the players. Having one or two tawdry lines of voice acting that don't quite meet the standard is not gonna kill the premise of the product, and most people don't even spot it. Like, the fact that Tron's example of the voice acting being bad is the first time it's even been brought up really slays me. Because, yeah, the voice actors have actually changed since when Nikarasu and to when Tron reviewed the game, though I should notion that Tron hasn't actually played the game. he watched the trailers and a few of the other videos, and decided to make his assertions based on those, instead of playing the game for what it is. I'm glad he didn't play the game, because at the end of the day, he was determined to be the one who was, you know, he wanted to make a point, and no matter how much the game might have deflected it, or completely, like, destroyed his point, he still would have tried to make it, because he's that desperate to be that kind of person. I don't care, because I'm just used to people being like that. But the fact that I had a newfound respect for Nikarasu, because you just set the bar that much fucking lower, John, really goes to show why I should not care about being toxic to you people, and I never have. But the fact is, me being toxic isn't yelling at you and being nasty and saying swear words, because anyone can do that. No, me being toxic is explaining to you why you're shit, and that's what I've done in this video. Me being toxic is telling you, no, here's why you're going to continue failing, and here's why you're going to keep doing it despite my warnings, because you're too far up your own arse to listen to anyone's advice outside of your little circle jerk. And I don't mind, because I profit off of you being ignorant. Like, my games are doing the numbers, despite the fact that you guys occasionally review bomb them. It doesn't matter because no one pays any attention. Hell, the review bombs are so insignificant, I can't even access the review bomb. I can't even see the review bombs people have put on my games. And I'm the one who created them. I'm the one who owns those pages. So, yeah, I don't think it's a concern. The review bombs stay on the status page for about 2 seconds, or like 2 months, which is nothing. And considering I can just delete the game page and repost the game when it gets enough negative press, really just shows how meaningless this shit is. Because yeah, shocker, people actually play my games for substance and not based on the star rating it has. But even then, the star rating doesn't show up to anyone but me, so that's a completely invalid concern. It just means I'm not going to show up in the algorithm, but that doesn't fucking matter, and you know why? It's because I actually have a presence somewhere outside of the RPG Maker community where I'm respected. And you dipshits don't seem to realize the importance of that, and that is why you will continuously fail to gain any notice or attention, beyond the fact that your game's just mediocre swill. And yeah, that's what being toxic for me is. It's not being mean and cussing at you, because again, any fucking sailor can do that. It won't teach you anything. But I'm outlining why you're failing, why you'll probably continue to fail, because you're too unwilling to see past your own nose to see the problems right in front of you. The problems you've been helping to propagate over the past 10 years. And yeah, it's hilarious to me, because no matter how much I say it, you people will never grow. But I do want to help the people who aren't fully indoctrinated by your bullshit to get a leg up and surpass you, because there's nothing that brings me more joy than seeing the person you tried to turn into your basically livestock become your maker, like I did. Because yeah, fun fact, I used to try to be, this community used to be my home. Back in 2011, 2012, this community was a banger. But it stopped being that when a certain someone called Celiana decided, hey, I don't like how this kid shit-talks certain people, even though I have no personal attachment to those people. It goes against my safe space. I want him out. And so they made this big fucking fabricated lie that I plagiarized, which is the easiest thing to disprove, as I've already done, see the video. And yeah, I never bothered to complain about that, because again, I don't care. Like, it's a thing I don't care about, because I'm not a status-obsessed dick. I don't care about my status in the RPG Maker community, because it's not a community that has any status worthy of consideration. As I've said more than once, you're all white noise. You don't matter, and you never have. And the fact that you want to matter so badly, but never put in the effort or risks to have you get in the field of being someone who does matter, that's hilarious, and just so cruelly ironic. Because, yeah, you're your own worst enemy. I've gone into it time and time again. Nothing I do will be able to hurt you more than you hurt yourselves. Because, yeah, for the most part, most of you are just gonna brush this off as, just Remi being egotistical, Remi being this, Remi being that. Never once considering that, yeah, I might have a point. But this video isn't for you. It's against you. It's for the people who already know your community's a joke. And I'm just putting a big spotlight on that and saying, yeah, here's exactly why they are a joke. And we're gonna laugh at you. And it's gonna be hilarious. And you guys are just kind of the butts of your own joke. And you don't realize it. And that is just peak comedy. And it's the only joke you've ever done that has made me laugh. Because, yeah, you guys think you're funny. You're not. You guys think you can make good games. You can't. You can make mid games, mediocre games, but nothing if you made anything revolutionary or good, more people than the RPG Maker community would know about it. But the thing is, you don't. You sell your games on one single factor instead of a bunch of them. You go for one single aspect and polish it to a mirror shine. Mirror shine. But it's just still a polished turd, because you polished one aspect. Like, you didn't think about the fact that maybe this is still a turd. Maybe I should stop putting a turd on the plate and mirror shining it. Because at the end of the day, this is still shit. It's just polished shit in one particular way. Like, yeah, it takes a lot to make a good game. I know, because I've made several shit games. And I'm only now starting to finally make decent games. It's a long cycle, and you can't just wing it. There's no real way to wing it, because you need to have made terrible games, and had those experiences, to learn what makes a game good. As Eddie from Ed and Eddie puts it, you gotta get something wrong before you get it right. You're not gonna get something right until you get it wrong, that's it. And that's correct. Like, you may think, wow, you're just all successes, aren't you? But yeah, I am now. Because I've gone through an immense amount of failures. I've had so many projects bomb or never even see the public eyes because I myself have been like, nah, this ain't gonna hit it. Yeah. I've shown it. I'm not gonna show it to these leprous dipshits because they don't deserve it. But if they'd given me more of the time of day, I could have gone into all the various projects, and I still have them backed up. Just as lessons of what not to do. And also as there were some cool ideas in there, and I just need to refine those ideas. So yeah, that's basically the premise. Considering that this is all entirely unscripted, understandably it went on for a bit longer than I intended, but this just needs to go out there. And I don't care how this video does. One more thing I want to mention. I noticed that the conspiracy video, which ruffled a lot of feathers in the RPG Maker community, because I put light to how evil some of these solipsistic shits are, when they went after me by their warrior princess, Indra, which completely backfired, because yeah, Indra isn't a warrior, she's a scared little fucking coward baby, who still holds that shit against me, despite the fact all I was really doing was defending myself. I made a video highlighting how stupid the entire ordeal was, and I've never regretted it, because it put her in her place. And yeah, apparently that video got removed, and the reason, and this is a real banger, you want to hear this one? Violent criminal organization, something or other, like basically has reference to violent criminal organizations. When the only organizations I talked about were Corporation 16, which isn't even an organization, it's just a subsect, and basically a joke I made to basically play on the insecurities of the RPG Maker Webs community, and RPG Maker Webs itself, which, yeah, is a community, but violent isn't exactly the word I'd use to describe it. They have violent tendencies, but they're on the internet, so there's not much they can really do to be violent. And I don't think they think themselves as very violent either. So yeah, I appealed the video, and it got basically appealed immediately. Because yeah, that was just a false claim that someone obviously flagged the video with. to try and get it taken down. And they succeeded until I noticed, at which point they didn't succeed anymore. So yeah, go to my channel and type in the conspiracy if you want to see me roasting these fuckwits back when all this shit originally sort of started happening. This was in 2014. This was when shit actually got really heated really quick. Like nowadays, everything's just so fucking boring. Because, yeah, no one's game to start wars anymore. I'm not starting a war here by making this video. Hell, most people won't even watch it. And the people who will watch it will probably be the target demographic, aka the people who like laughing at RPG Maker's hilarious bullshit. Or, well, rather the community's hilarious bullshit. And we're just gonna have a jolly good time. And yes, I am sure some of the people in the RPG Maker community are going to watch a bit of it, immediately hate it, dislike it, and try to fuck the ratio, and not realize that the beautiful irony that when you dislike my video, it makes me happy because it lets me know I've made your day worse. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to do now. Like, yeah, that was a point I tried to be my better self for you guys, and it didn't work out. So now, I'm just being a bitch, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Have a good one. Toodles.